to heat up your frozen dinners, grab your TV tray, and settle in for another episode of the Plus Platoon, your podcast for all things Disney Plus, brought to you by Disney Plus fans. Watch along with us every week as we cover all the new, the old, the good, and the bad on Disney Plus. So put down that remote, don't touch that dial, and welcome your fabulous Plus Platoon host.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Plus Platoon. We're a Disney Plus fan podcast that gives honest, spoiler-filled reviews of movies and shows on Disney Plus. We'll look at new releases, coming attractions, and we'll even go back into the vault to revisit some of the classic Disney that's on the platform. Make sure you're subscribed and you will never miss a moment. I'm going to bring in Kate. Kate, good to see you this evening.
Good to see you too, my friend.
Next, we've got Peter. Pete, glad to have you with us.
Happy to be here. Looking forward to talking about soundtracks.
Yes, and got a full platoon tonight. We got Steve. Steve, how's your week going?
It's a Monday, bingo.
But it's not a Monday. So
It feels like a Monday.
it feels
It
like
does
a Monday.
feel
That's
like a
fair.
Monday.
That's fair, guys. If you have not already, please like, subscribe, share. We got some really fun shows coming up, including next, Naruto Christmas is a whole lot of fun, including a movie that I'm not going to watch, but those three are going to talk about because it's not my thing. So,
What is it?
You're gonna have to
It's a
listen
secret.
to find out.
Oh.
So this week we watched the documentary Music by John Williams. It follows John Williams' life and specifically focuses on his music career. Starts as a jazz musician, and then he moves into playing for studios, and then he moves into directing, and then he moves into composing. So I think there's nobody who doesn't know who John Williams is that has listened to any musical score. I guarantee you have heard something by John Williams. But to heck, between Star Wars and Harry Potter, everybody's heard something by John Williams. Even if you don't watch either of those movies, you've heard those themes. Or there's so many other iconic ones, and we're going to get to what some of our favorite ones and those are later in the show. But I'm going to start with you, Pete. Pete, what about this hit the right notes? What worked on the documentary?
Well, what I did like is that it did cover, for the most part, it really looked back on like the early days of his career and him starting and his childhood and learning piano. I was a little worried that it would just be like John Williams' greatest hits, which of course you're going to have that, but it like opened with Jaws and I was like, uh-oh, are we just going to go forward from here? But then it went back and it looked at his childhood, his early years as a jazz musician and orchestrator and things like that, and then got into his into him starting as a composer and things like that. So I was glad to see that they went back into the early days. I think they did. The talking heads that they got were significant enough that it didn't feel like just a bunch of random people. Sometimes you watch these documentaries and it's like, there were a couple of those. It was like, Chris Martin from Coldplay, really? I mean, it came around as to why he was.
Yeah,
it came around as to why he was there. But like, that's the kind of person I'm talking about. That like, what does that have to do with John Williams? Most of the people that they had were legitimately had worked with him, or were musicians, or were other composers, or were directors and things like that. So, I thought I really liked those aspects of it. I'm not commenting on the music itself because his stuff is so great. But Steve, what about you? What did you like about it?
I liked that it touched on how involved in various things he's been in. Like, I didn't realize that he's been involved in some TV music. I went like, what? So I think that was there. And then also just how he's been involved in such a long time, even I guess started with this like playing and stuff and how it all led up there. I really liked how it touched on the sort of the synergy with Spielberg and him playing off each other and just their collaboration throughout the years. Because you think all of his well-known pieces, Spielberg usually was involved somehow. So I really enjoyed those aspects of it. I mean, that's why I sort of found fascinating.
Most of his well-known pieces, Spielberg was involved.
Mhm. Yes. Like I said, I like the sort of the Jaws part, have where Spielberg had this idea and he came in with this other idea, sort of like it's a very simple thing of how it plays, and it's so iconic of hearing that. All right, Kate, your turn.
And we still can't hear Kate.
Weird. I didn't know I got muted. I loved. Okay, loved is a strong word. I liked a lot this documentary. I tend to like documentaries, but a lot of the documentaries we have watched lately have not been great. And I really enjoyed this one. I was a little bit kind of dreading it because I was like, man, if this is just going to be another like wah wah, but I really enjoyed it. I'm so glad that they touched on. I'm so glad that they touched on more than just Star Wars. And sorry, my cat is digging through things right now. So, and they talked. I love that they hit on Schindler's List. I love that because I was curious how they were going to approach that. I am so sorry. Curious how they were going to approach that. Yeah, I'm going to tell my cat to be quiet now. So, Derek, you go ahead.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this. I really, really enjoyed this. As you said, the pre-movie stuff I was not aware of. But when you think about it, it sounds so much like John Williams. Some of the TV stuff he has done. I did not realize he was the piano player on the Peter Gunn theme song. That was a really cool idea. I have not gone back and listened to some of his jazz that he wrote. I'm curious about it. I just haven't gotten around to it yet. But when you think it was brought up, when you think about the Cantina Band in Star Wars, the reason part of it is that's so iconic is that it's actually a jazz piece. It's not just them screwing around on instruments. So, I'm like you, Pete. I like most of the people they brought on worked for the different ones. I was curious, and I actually mentioned this to my son. My son, my wife, and I all sat and watched this, and this is one of the few ones he actually like turned his phone off and sat and watched. So he really enjoyed this too. We were curious, being a Disney production, if how much they were going to touch on Harry Potter, to be perfectly honest. And they hit it for about 2 minutes.
Yep.
So now he was also only involved in only the first 2 or 3 movies.
Yep.
And really the Hedwig's theme is about all you really remember of it, but that's so iconic. But we were wondering, as much as they hit on Star Wars, Harry Potter's there. I mean, with a different generation, Harry Potter is maybe not quite at Star Wars and Marvel level, but it's definitely the top of the B tier. So we were curious about that. They did show it because if they had not, it would have been so glaringly obvious. I
guess that should be it. But for my daughter, it's actually Jurassic Park is probably her John Williams like. But she loves dinosaurs, so
right, yeah, and I get that. It's just the majority of the generation just behind Kate and I,
right? Yeah,
because Kate's about right. I was a little too old for Harry Potter. As far as when the books came out, I was already in college, so I was a little old for it. But that there is a stretch of that generation that Harry Potter is what they remember, and they will almost recognize Hedwig's theme before they'll recognize the Star Wars theme.
Yeah.
So, okay, maybe not the Star Wars theme. Before the Jurassic Park theme, definitely. So, yeah. Okay. Now, if that's what hit the right notes.
Can I add one more thing, Derek?
Absolutely.
Just the other thing that I loved was watching his interaction with Steven Spielberg. And watching his interaction with Yo-Yo Ma and watching how did you think about it? This man's if not one of the greatest composers of our generation. Like he is he's so, there's no about it. He is one of the greatest composers of our generation. Everything he has composed is so iconic. He draws in crowds. Like, he's just so good. I loved how seemingly humble he came off. To me, he came off quite humble, and he could be a really big jerk if he wanted to be. But that was, that was one thing that I loved watching, was that, and watching, like, when he was like, I like to golf, when his daughter was like, Dad and I golf together. It made him human. And like I was talking about, I mean, so many of his movies are such epic blockbuster, have comedy to them. And then to watch how tenderly he touched on Saving Private Ryan, and he touched on Schindler's List, and the heaviness of things. I really sat in awe of that. I thought that was really cool.
Fair enough. So, if that's the stuff that we liked about it, what about this was a little bit out of tune? And Steve, I'll start with you on this one. What didn't quite work?
At first, they were going through things so quickly, like boom, 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 like really just throwing things out there fast. And I was like, I need you to slow down because so much information is coming at me. And then also, I got bored about halfway through. I guess I started like going towards my phone for me.
Did you get bored when they started talking about the songs you knew?
Like the beginning, I was interested. Like when he's like TV, all that, I guess slowed down, and I think it was they weren't going in depth enough, or they're going off the side. I mean, towards the end, I was getting bored. I really liked when they're talking about the TV and this. For example, like the Jaws part where they're really trying to come together and put it all together, or the Close Encounters of the Third Kind, building that in. I found that really interesting of how to piece it together. I enjoyed when they showed the clip without music and then added the music in, of just how music plays such an important part. I mean, my biggest thing is where it was so much information, and then some of it I just wanted more, like skimming over it and then moving on. And then towards the end, the middle part, I sort of find sort of boring. I started losing interest.
Kate, I'll let you. We'll head over to you next.
Yeah. So there was one part that I liked, and I need to say why I liked it so that I can go into what I didn't like. The part when he's talking about, what is it? Third encounters?
Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Close Encounters of the Third Kind. When he's talking about that bum 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 or whatever.
Yeah.
And he goes into like, it's five notes, and that can be ba na 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 or whatever. And he goes, but however, if you did it this way, it ends it. But by doing this, it makes you say, this movie is great. And it, like, the way that he dissected that as a musician, I thought was so good. I wish they would have done a little bit more of that into Yoda's theme. Yes, they did it a little bit in the Jaws theme, into the Schindler's List theme, into E.T. Like, I wish that he could have just gone a little bit deeper. What?
Nothing.
I wish he could have gone a little bit deeper, because that was probably one of my favorite parts of the whole movie as a musician, was like, this is what bum 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 or whatever it is. Like, that was so, it just shows the genius that goes on in his mind. I wish that he would have done that a little bit more with other songs. And I agree with Steve. There were parts where I was like, okay, how much is left? Like, okay, we're kind of, and I can't pinpoint when that happened. I also kept looking, and I was like, yo, we've left out a huge franchise that he has revolutionized. Like, bum bum ba-dum bum 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 bum. Huge! And they only talked about it for 2 minutes, and I get it because it's a Disney thing. I get
Okay,
it. I get
For
it.
me, is it bad? I didn't recognize what she was saying because I don't do Harry Potter a lot.
No. Dun, 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 dun,
Dun,
dun,
dun, dun,
dun.
dun. It's
Yeah, I
it's
knew
like
it.
one of the main Harry Potter
I
themes.
know it now that it took me a minute to recognize it. So
Oh,
no,
so
I got it, Kate.
I was just a little surprised that like what Marvel and Star Wars and everything is under the Disney brand. That is what Harry Potter is, with Harry Potter and Jurassic Park and everything under the Comcast brand, under the Universal brand.
Well,
So it
but honestly, most of Steven Spielberg is under Universal.
Yeah.
Like, yes, Star
sure.
Wars.
But I mean, it's
Yeah.
they had spent so much time on Star Wars that, and yes, Jaws was huge. Yes, E.T. is huge, and Jurassic Park is huge. But Derek made a good point that Harry Potter is the Star Wars, not Marvel, but Star Wars of my generation. So it just surprised me a little bit that they just kind of like, and Harry Potter.
Now, and to counterpoint that, he composed all of the Star Wars movies.
Yes.
He only did the first 3 of the Harry Potters.
Actually, it's 2. I think he only did the
Is it
first
just
2.
the first 2?
Oh, I thought he did the first 3.
Okay, it might be first 2. So there's a reason that, as I said, the Hedwig's theme is about all you recognize in the later stuff, because anything from later on was not John Williams. So
Yep.
that's the only thing I can, in defense, is his contribution to Harry Potter was only really the Hedwig's theme and some of the stuff from the first couple movies that, unless you're super deep into it, the general public only remembers the Hedwig theme. So, Pete, how about you? What didn't work?
Not a lot. You know, I okay, I'll save this. I'll save this for when we're talking about the next thing. It was, you know, Walt Disney used to always said you need a little tear with laughter or whatever. There wasn't any, like, it made it seem like his life was perfect almost. You know, I mean, I realized his wife passed away, and then that was sad, but even that, they didn't make it sad. And then, like, they tried to make it happy, but like his one daughter came on and she said all positive things.
Neither of his sons came on.
Neither of his sons came on, and she was like, well, you know, my mom died and I became mom, right? So like, you know, there's nothing negative here, and I understand why this was produced, right? This is a celebration of John Williams, but like, is he really Mr. Perfect? Because that's what I got from watching this, is that, like, there's nothing wrong with this guy. He's brilliant, and he works with everybody, and as Kate said, he's humble, and he's, you know, he spends time with his daughter, and his kids are great, and his, you know, and I guess I just wanted to be like, there had to have been something that they could have had in there to say, like, he struggled with this or something, that I felt like there's something that got painted over that we didn't see, just because it was so positive.
Right.
It's a minor complaint because it was still it was, you know, a celebration of his music. And but yeah, I just felt like there was stuff that must have been left out because no one has that perfect life.
Yeah,
So.
Pete, I'd completely agree on that one. Part of that to me is the fact that, in theory, he quit the Boston Pops because he wanted them to play more film music.
Right.
There has to be something further there.
I'm going to say a bad word, but it sounded like he quit the Boston Pops because the instrumentalists in the Boston Pops were assholes. That's what it sounded like
That's
to
what they
me.
made it sound
That's what
like.
they made it sound like. Now,
But it goes back to what I just
truth
said.
is usually somewhere in the middle.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and that was, I will say that he had just come after Arthur Fiedler, but Arthur Fiedler did Henry Mancini. Arthur Fiedler did all these different movie stuff that could not have been it. Something else had to have been the reason that he quit. And then it was not the musicians not wanting to play movie music. That did not stand up to me, for me. Pete, I definitely agree with you. The super gloss over of the fact that his wife died. I mean, it was literally less than 2 minutes talking about it. And then a barely mention of his remarriage for 30 years. I mean, and I think he has stepkids.
Maybe.
So just the fact that that one daughter was the only one who would come on is a little telling, maybe. But again,
I also forgot that his son was the lead singer of Toto.
Yeah. Well,
I was like, oh yeah.
He's stuck. He's stuck in Africa. So, but okay, Kate. Toto sang this song.
I know who Toto is. Dorothy's dog.
Yeah, huh? Oh, children.
Toto's great, man. Toto's a great band.
Kids, I wouldn't go that far. But so yeah, and I'm with you, Steve. This is one of the very few documentaries I would have liked another half hour of further in depth about some of the musical theory. Some of why I did this versus this. I also don't like the fact that they literally spent 10 seconds with the appropriation of certain musical themes that John Williams is known for. John Williams is known for stealing a lot of musical themes and making them into blockbusters. I mean, Jaws is Dvorak's New World the fourth movement of.
Oh well, they talked about that a little bit, right? That he takes
for like 10 seconds.
Yeah.
So, and again, Pete, you go to this is a celebration of his music, and you don't want to say anything negative. Is almost like I didn't even look. Was he a producer on this?
I didn't look, but I was surprised that because like his detractors say what you're saying there. The people that appreciate him more say, well, he's influenced by these particular artists and he takes that and he incorporates it into his music and everything like that. So I was surprised that they didn't defend it a little more in the show to say these are my influences and this is why my music often has pieces from this type of music and blah blah blah.
And I think they tried to hit on that a little bit because they talked about how the only way they hit on that is the fact that directors will often submit it to composers with other pieces of music installed already.
Right.
And sometimes that will influence the composers.
Yes. He is not a producer.
He's not a producer of it? Okay.
No, but Spielberg was, Ron Howard was.
Chris Columbus was. So, yeah. So just.
So I'm just saying it wasn't a warts and all documentary.
No, it was not.
This is an amazing man who made amazing music for 50 years and let's celebrate that. And there's nothing wrong with that.
No, there's not. No, there's not. I mean, guys, I will be honest. This is one of the ones we're getting picky on this.
Right.
Because overall, I think all of us agree it was pretty decent documentary. So now for one of the hardest questions I have ever asked on this show. What is in your opinion, the best John Williams song, tune, theme, the best musical I could go pull it up on, this is such and such a theme or song, and I'm stick with one, because if you keep talking after one, I'm going to cut you off.
I have a question. Does it have to be one theme, or can it be one franchise?
One song, one title song or theme, or
Cool.
yes.
Cool. I'm gonna go ahead and break that rule. So I have two.
Of course you do. So sorry, Kate. Kate will come back when she can actually follow the rules. I mean, teenagers, I'm sorry, millennials.
Okay.
So, okay.
Put me back up. Okay, so because what I want to say, I'm not gonna say, because I know one of the three of you are going to say it. It has also been stuck in my head since I watched this. I'm gonna say Hedwig's theme from Harry Potter is one of my favorites, followed closely by Double Trouble or Something Wicked This Way Comes, also from Harry Potter, which people don't realize that was a John Williams.
Double.
mine-
That is from the third one, though.
He did the third one.
Okay, so maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he did the third one. Yeah.
Pete, how about
So,
you?
those are mine.
Indiana Jones, baby.
Now, which one? Raiders?
The main Raiders theme. Bum, ba-dum, bum, bum, ba-dum, ba-da-da-da. That entire soundtrack to that first movie is great, but the if I got to do one thing, I do want to come back around and say something else after this question, though. But for picking one, that's my pick. Steve?
It's going to be Star Wars. If I had to pick something from Star Wars, it would have to be Darth Vader's theme. Yes.
The
Iconic.
Imperial March.
Yes.
Yeah.
Guess that iconic. I remember just growing up and watching it. Either that or it'd be the opening of Star Wars. That quickly brings back memories. But I'm going to go with following Derek's rules, Darth Vader's theme.
Yeah. And
Coward.
in this one, I'm actually with Pete on this one. The Raiders March is so...
I'm shocked that none of you said what I thought you were going to say.
Okay, Kate, what were we going to say?
Jurassic Park.
That's an earworm, but that's about it.
Oh,
no.
so good.
Adriana probably
Not
would've
from my
come on and
childhood, so
Yeah. Hey, Pete, what were you going to add in?
I just wanted to mention, like, it was funny, like they were talking about Star Wars, and they were like, yeah, and this record was so popular and it sold all these soundtracks, and I'm like, yeah, I was like 8 and I bought one of those. I have that record of this original, that double record
right over there on my floor because I listened to it the other day.
Of the original soundtrack of Star Wars. Like I played the heck out of that, and honestly, thinking about it, like I've always been into it. I mean, I don't exclusively listen to soundtrack music, but I as a kid I had like the Back to the Future soundtrack, and I had the Raiders of the Lost Ark soundtrack, and I had soundtrack albums, and a lot of that was probably because of John Williams and Star Wars, because that was the first one. So like it's really something how he brought classical music to our generations here. So so in the end, as I said, I could see the flaws of this movie, but in the end, it still is pretty wonderful to celebrate all that he did right. So
Agreed.
Oh,
I'm shocked. I'm also shocked that none of you said Jaws.
I love the soundtrack of Jaws, but like it's
not nearly as good
to
as
me. It's not as iconic, other than the dun 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 dun, which is great, but it's almost too simple to be like the best.
Yeah.
And I will say something against what Steve said. The Imperial March. I have a problem with that one because it's a sequel song. It doesn't actually appear in New Hope. It only appears in Empire Strikes Back and the others. It never appears in the original. So to me, that's actually a knock against it. But I will also say,
I don't think so.
And that was honestly probably either my second or third choice, Steve, was the Imperial March.
Yeah.
So, because that's one of those, you hear it, and the first thing you see in your head is either Darth Vader or a Star Destroyer or a
Or the
TIE
Death Star.
Fighter or something. Yeah. So, oh,
Yeah, there's so many that you could have picked and
so many.
be 100% right that it's awesome. A friend of mine not too long ago, I'd say within the last 10 years, gave us the Home Alone soundtrack, which is John Williams did Home Alone. That is a fantastic soundtrack, and there's
an
not
amazing soundtrack.
There's not really anything super iconic about it per se. I mean, if you hear the main theme, you recognize it, but it's not catchy like like a lot of these are. But boy, that's just a
somewhere
really
in my memory.
Wonderful music. Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. Okay, so as we always do, Cups of Pixie Dust out of 5 for this documentary, music by John Williams. Pete, since you happen to be on my left at the moment because I got kicked out for some reason, Cups of Pixie Dust out of 5.
I'm gonna give this a 4. I really enjoyed it. Again, I think I would have liked to have seen maybe a little more warts and all documentary, which prevents me from giving it a 5. But I could go back and watch this again if someone was like, yeah, let's watch that. So 4. I'm gonna give it a 4. Steve?
Wow. I'm going 2.5. Between that 2.5 and 3. It started off strong, but just that middle near the end, it lost my interest. So 2.5, 3. Okay. Yeah, 2.5.
Okay. Kate?
4.
Yeah, and I'm giving it a 4. I really enjoy this. As you said, Pete, I would go back and watch this again. And that's usually my 3.5 level. Is I would probably go back and watch this. I would definitely go back and watch this again. This is a 4. My wife said she'd watch it again. My son said she'd watch it again. Guys, if ignoring Steve, if you have not, especially if you are a musician, go back, go watch this documentary. It is well worth your time.
I'm the outlier.
You are the outlier.
Steve, what did Nick think of it? Did he watch it?
He was like me. He was fascinated by oh my gosh, the TV part.
Mm-hmm.
There was a couple questions like what came up. I had to ask him, being the musician, like what are they talking about?
I was just curious because he's a music guy, so I was wondering what he.
I think he was he's really into jazz, so I asked him, if he knew that, and he did not necessarily know that, but yeah.
Kate, what have we got for Disney Plus news this week?
One thing and one thing only. Andor season 2 will be coming to Disney Plus on April 22nd. It will follow the 4 years prior to Rogue One in 12 episodes, 3 per year of the story.
Excited.
That's it.
I am so looking forward to it.
Yeah. This was consistently one of the best Star Wars series and really I would say one of the best series that we have watched on Disney Plus so far. It's been a couple of years since they showed the first one. I'm honestly going to try and go back and watch.
I'm definitely going to go back, and I forget which episode it is, but the prison break episode might be.
I think that's actually the last episode.
I think it's second to last or something. But anyways, that episode may be the best episode of television that Disney Plus has produced.
Awfully
that single
close.
episode. So yeah, it's definitely. I hope the second season holds up to the first.
Yeah, me too. So, guys, next week, this is the Incredibles 20th anniversary. It was released Thanksgiving 20 years ago. So, Kate may actually remember when this one came out. So, yeah, we're watching it, and it's the original Incredibles. I think everyone knows the story, but I'm going to go back and watch it again just because there's a couple parts of it I want to re-look at because I could probably tell you what happens in it because I've probably seen it enough, and it's been on, let's face it, it's been on Freeform / ABC Family a ton, but I'm probably going to go back and rewatch it just because I like rewatching the stuff before we actually review it. And spoiler alert, it's a good movie. So,
I am the greatest good you're ever gonna know.
oh my gosh, yeah, Samuel L. Jackson, how he does not drop an F-bomb in this movie.
I worked at the movie theater when this movie came out, and we had previews playing in the like lobby where I was working concessions, and that line got repeated every 20 minutes for hours.
I'm sorry. Having
so
worked in
good.
studio and having like the same 4 songs repeat all the time.
Yeah.
I get it. So, guys, if you have suggestions on what we should watch, please email us at plusplatoon@gmail.com. Send us comments, YouTube, Facebook, X, Twitter, Instagram, everywhere. We have new episodes Thursday on YouTube and all the major podcasting services. For Pete, Steve, and Kate, we will see everyone next week. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks for watching this week's episode of the Plus Platoon. Be sure to subscribe to the Plus Platoon podcast to keep getting great content each week. Then head over to Apple Podcasts and leave those 5-star reviews, as they help make the Plus Platoon visible to even more Disney Plus fans. Also, go to YouTube and like and subscribe to the Plus Platoon channel, where you can watch all future episodes live. If you have a question for the Plus Platoon, please send us an email to plusplatoon@gmail.com or connect with us on Facebook, Twitter, or Instagram @plusplatoon.
The Plus Platoon is a Disney Plus fan podcast and is not affiliated with the Walt Disney Company or the Disney Plus streaming service. All opinions expressed on the show are solely those of the individual hosts and in no way reflect the views of the Walt Disney Company.
Thanks for watching, and be sure to stay tuned for next week's episode, because the Plus Platoon is to be continued.